What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Facade. In today's show, I sit down with a friend of mine, PropTech entrepreneur Healy Hynes, who is the CEO and founder of Irish software business Beagle.io. Now, Healy is no stranger to the property market, having been born into a well-known property family here in Ireland. His father was quite an influential person in the whole Irish property scene and involved in a number of the kind of societies and associations involved in property in the Irish market. Now, what possessed Healy to leave the relative security of a family property business to pursue a technology venture? Well, that is one of the many questions that I'm going to get into with Healy today. For those of you listening from the UK or the US, you may be interested to know that Healy is currently working on scaling his business across the US. So do watch this space, and it should be an interesting episode for anyone who is interested in innovation and in particular into the whole PropTech scene, which is one of my kind of strong interests. So without further ado, let me switch over now to my conversation with Healy Hynes. You are listening to Behind the Facade, and I am your host, Gavin J. Gallagher. On this podcast, I explore the mental and emotional game often playing out subconsciously, both in your mind and the mind of everyone else in the real estate or property investment market. The key to success in this game is to master your mindset, your behavior, to take control of your thoughts, your emotions, and most importantly, your ego. Welcome to the show. Healy Hynes, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Gavin. Thanks very much for having me on the program.
Not at all. And first of all, Healy, where in the world are you as we speak?
As we speak, I am in Athlone.
Central Ireland.
Central Ireland, right in the middle of the bogs, one kilometre from the lakes. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's where I am at the moment, trying to keep myself warm in this wintry island.
But what's interesting about this conversation is that despite the fact that you're in Central Ireland, you're actually building your business in the US now very much. And so we'll be going
Yeah,
into that today.
brilliant. Thanks very much. Yeah, we've that, Ireland is a great test bed for a global market, and I think a lot of the Irish prop tech companies, that's the way that they've been designed, and we're following a similar model.
Brilliant. Well, that's what we're talking about today, PropTech, and in particular, your PropTech company, Beagle.io. But before we get into all of that, Healy, can you just like for a bit of context, there's a bit of a backstory here. You didn't start out as a tech guy. You started out as a traditional auctioneer and like estate agent, isn't that right?
That's correct. I'm a second generation property head. Um,
Property head, I like
my
it.
yeah, my dad set up our family business in the late '60s, so he was actually one of the founders of IPAV. I think he was one of the first presidents of IPAV back in the day.
That's the
So
Irish Property Auctioneers and Valuers, isn't it?
that's correct, yeah. And he was a fellow of the what is now the SCSI as well. So he was very heavily involved in the industry and helped form a number of organisations in Ireland back during the 80s and 90s. So I was deeply versed in the industry from day one. I remember working show houses and marketing suites and new home schemes when I was like 8 or 9 with my little bow tie going around showing people around apartment complexes. And so I grew up in the industry. It was a family business. My mom worked in it, my dad worked in it, my aunts worked in it,
Wow.
everybody worked in the family business. So it was a natural move for me. I went to university and my degree was in marketing and business studies. I actually started off in science, but then moved into marketing and business studies, and then came back to work in the family business after that. So I took over the running of that company in the mid to late '90s, I suppose, when my father, in inverted commas, retired, which lasted all about 6 months until my mum kicked him back into the office again because he was putting the Delph into the wrong press and annoying her.
Pissing her off.
Yeah. So she grabbed me and says, can you tell your father you're busy in the office, you need him back in again?" So dad henceforth unretired after about 6 months. So it was very, very much a family business. But
Excellent.
we were heavily involved in land acquisitions, planning, zoning, development, sales, management, the full cycle.
Right.
And then at the same time, I set up a digital marketing agency. So there was a whole gap in the market I'd felt in the marketing of new homes in the early 2000s. So I set up a digital marketing agency to do that for our own schemes, and then other agents started using that as well.
What was that called?
The agency was called Real Creative.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so we worked with developers all over Ireland really, and it was great because I suppose my connection in the industry, my dad's connections in the industry, thanks for the God. We were very successful in that business as well, but that obviously all changed in 2008. So
Yeah. 2008 was kind of a watershed moment for pretty much everyone in the property industry in Ireland.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, there was a come to Jesus, I think, for a lot of people, and I think there's still PTSD in the industry as a
There
result of
is.
it. That's the scar that's never gone away.
I can tell you that PTSD is a good word to describe it. In terms of, I mean, it's funny. I was just speaking with somebody the other day, and we were, in fact, the latest one of the recent podcasts I did on just the state of the market and the supply demand imbalance and stuff, and it all stems from 2008, like when the construction industry got decimated, and we went
Yeah,
from 90,000 houses a year output to like 8,000. And so decimated
yeah,
is actually what happened. It went to 1/10 of its size, and then it has taken a decade for it to get to 1/3 of its size that it was at the time.
yeah.
And that is where all of our housing woes stem from these days. So it's interesting. And tell me this, I mean, the step over to prop tech. I mean, I remember I was started hearing the term prop tech around about, I think it was 2017 or something like that. Were you hearing it before? Were you kind of hearing it before that, or is it around the time that Beagle.com or .io started to become a kind of a reality?
Yeah, I suppose that was the first time I would have heard the term being referred to. The first time, like the concept behind Beagle first came into my head, I would say about 2000. Um,
Just the tech didn't exist at the time, or
yeah, the tech didn't exist. I remember the first time I sat down and I probably I'd used Amazon previously for buying books and that kind of stuff, but the first time I actually saw eBay, I went to my head, this is phenomenal. This is unbelievable stuff. I said there has to be some sort of way of leveraging that into the real estate sector.
yeah.
Then once mobile phones came about and people started interacting with them and emails and all that kind of stuff on the phone devices, the idea of the remote 24/7 piece further got reinforced in my head, that the UX and the customer journey was archaic and was ripe for disruption. But how that was going to get done, the actual process behind it was still nascent. And it was really only in about 2017 that I started to come to terms, I suppose, with formulating what would become the product itself.
Interesting. And so, just, I mean, from the point of, say, a potential client listening in, how would you describe, the features and benefits of Beagle as a kind of a product that they would consider using? Why would they come over and start looking at it?
Sure. Well, the part that we solve, the problem that we solve is the fact that making offers on property is a frustrating, fragmented, inefficient process. It's archaic and is all over the place, and has been for years. Something that hasn't been addressed for since forever.
Yeah.
So what we do is we digitize the customer journey. The top of funnel, most of the estate agents' customers are digital by default. 80% of them are coming to an agent through an email or a website or something. They're not walking in the door. They just don't.
Those
Um,
days are gone. Yeah, the branch office kind of a thing.
yeah, it's there. The office exists, but the requirement of the office for people to walk in the door and get a catalog and this kind of stuff, and or ringing you up and saying what do you have for sale, that's gone. Like that went 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So the consumer is digital by default. The agent is making it an analog process. They're the ones creating the fragmentation, not the consumers. So the fear, I think, by a lot of agents is that they're pushing their clients to something that they don't want. It's actually the other way around. The
Right.
consumers the consumers are digital by default. They're interacting with their phones. They're buying cars online. They're booking holidays online. The last 18 months has shown us the way that the world actually operates.
Yeah.
If everybody's working from home, if this wasn't viable, every company in the country would be bust at this stage.
Yeah.
But they haven't.
And they'd all be sort of piling back into the office at the earliest moment. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And all the conversation now is around how many days can we get them back into the office, and it's they're calling it in some places the Great Resignation. Like people are leaving companies that want them to come back in 5 days a week. They're just simply not going to do it.
Yeah.
So the companies themselves are responding with tools that support this ecosystem, and that's effectively what Beagle is. What we've realized is that, and that bidding piece, that's a global problem. Regardless of what regulatory environment surrounds it, what the sale type is, what the house type is, what the language is, what the company culture is, they're all secondary, or they're not secondary, but they vary from case to case, but the pain point remains the same no matter where you look at it. We have done years of research on this, talking to stakeholders in countries and languages and jurisdictions all over the world, and they all had the same particular pain point. So we're addressing that vertical. And the benefit from our perspective of doing that is because we're task specific, the agents themselves get to determine how they want to run their businesses. We're not prescriptive. We don't tell the agent how to operate their business. They're long enough at it to know what tools, what their business operates, their own business model. We give them the tool to digitize that business model. We don't look to supplant it with something else.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why we don't have a consumer facing brand.
So yours is
We
kind of a backbone behind the scenes. It's not front. Yeah. Okay. That's what yeah,
yeah.
that's the bit that I didn't get. Yeah.
Yeah, we're more like Oracle. That we were compared to Oracle last week, from a client who was talking to. We're an infrastructure company. If a consumer never sees a Beagle logo, and even if an agent never sees a Beagle logo, we're delighted. It makes absolutely no difference to us. We give them the tools and the technology to digitize their customer journey. How they implement us, that's up to them. They know better than we do.
Okay. And that's okay. So that's interesting because, I mean, you're probably aware here in East Point, Oracle is actually one of our largest occupiers, and so I'm very familiar with Oracle and what they do and stuff. So that immediately makes it clear to me why America is your kind of target market, because it's all about the enterprise kind of side to it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. This is we're an enterprise company, so we deal with with organizations who are looking to digitize their consumers' customer journeys, digitize their teams and their group organizations. They know how they want to deploy us inside in their companies, and we provide them with the technology to do that, and then give them access to the data sets that then arise from that customer journey, so they know how their teams are performing.
And so, in terms of, let's just make it kind of simple. In terms of a kind of a family business running down the country here in Ireland, let's,
Yeah.
somebody, they're used to having paper diaries and they're used to having kind of running out to meet clients and appointments and all that kind of stuff. That can all be turned into a telephone, basically. Appointments made, clients introduced to agents on the ground, all that kind of stuff. All of that is taken, and nobody has to hire somebody to go and create a website for them and all that. You basically just plug in their logo and plug in their telephone number into the bottom of the website or whatever.
Yeah, we plug into their pre-existing architecture. So the agents are very precious of their public profile. It's an industry that has no repeat customers. So they need to have that presence, and they're very conscious of and very protective of their relationship with their buyers and their sellers. So we plug into their pre-existing system. if an Irish agent comes onto the application and they want to sign up, we would sign them up, give them the tools and technology, and we give them a plug-in that they give to their website people that drop straight into their pre-existing system. So depending on how complicated or simple that their technology base is, they could be up and running in 24 hours.
Okay,
And
interesting.
we, we deploy, and then they decide how they want to implement us. Some clients will have a level of pre-screening before they allow people to make offers on the properties. Some will not. Some will require KYC documentation or proof of funds before they enable them to make offers. Some will not. That's their business. They
So
know what
it's
they're doing.
just
So
choose whatever works for you, and then you can fulfill that.
yeah,
Interesting.
exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
is it primarily a residential kind of a product, or is it any kind of aspect of the real estate industry?
We support all aspects of the real estate industry, but because of the nature of the real estate industry, most of our transactions are residential, same as every other brokerage or company that's out there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And tell me this. So, I mean, from your perspective, having been an agent, involved in a family sort of real estate business or brokerage, moving over to prop tech, I mean, was it a massive transition? Did you have to kind of learn on the job, or did you find that it was very much kind of an easy stepping stone for you to make?
For me, it was quite easy, being honest about it. I was always writing code, so like the first version of Beagle I built myself. Now
Yeah.
I did that while I was still running the agency, and I was the kind of guy. I was one of those nerdy kids in the bedroom who was writing computer games at an earlier age, and as things went along, like I built networks and stuff at home and did a bit of coding and this kind of stuff. So I would have been familiar with technology consistently. The difficult thing, I suppose, was making the break between one and the other, and detaching yourself from a family business can be incredibly difficult, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah, it is
Uh,
very difficult to detach. Yeah.
yeah, 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 but instead, my sister runs that company now very successfully. So it's not as if I'm not 100% removed from the industry. I'm 100% removed from the business, but I'm not 100% removed from the industry, if you know what
You
I mean.
still hear all the
Uh,
the ups and downs and how it's
oh,
going.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm still involved in it from that perspective. So I know I keep an ear to the ground on the daily woes of the estate
Of this.
agent.
But what would you describe as the most difficult aspect of sort of running a prop tech business? I mean, is the fundraising difficult or easy, or is there another aspect that you find most challenging?
The challenging piece for me was um, pace. I suppose is the best way to put it. Was sitting back and not jumping to conclusions about where I thought the product needed to go. Parking my own prejudices from having come from an agency perspective and thinking this is the way the product should go, and actually taking the time to analyze consumer behavior, agent behavior, market dynamics, and being prepared to respond to those positions. And it's one of the reasons why the we parked we started from scratch all over again in 2020 when we started working with Microsoft. So
Right.
we made a decision in March when COVID kicked off. We made a decision to um, re-architect and rebuild an entire new tech stack from scratch, and
Wow.
not actually. Yeah, yeah, we
And that
just
was
said,
down to just realizing that was the route to go, and start from scratch, basically.
yeah, yeah. We decided that the time was right to do it. It was always something we were going to do, and we said there's an opportunity here now with the way the industry is coming around. There's a lull and there's a lag that we're going to have by the time the industry comes out of this, we need to have our enterprise product ready to go for them.
Right. Right.
So we basically dropped the hammer, hired some more developers, um, and kicked on with what we were trying to do, and that's where we are now. That's the product that we're rolling out now.
But in terms of funding and things like that, I've heard, the complaints from other prop tech people that, the Irish market is a great test bed, but it's very hard to raise any kind of capital in this market. Like venture capital is not that easy in the Irish market. Is that the view that you've found to be the case? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lack of understanding of the industry, I think, and from an outsider's perspective, everybody gets they get distracted by the tickets prices. They get distracted by three, four, 500,000 euros and who's getting a slice of what and all this kind of stuff, and they just don't get how the industry actually operates.
Right.
Uh, so and that's why from our perspective, like Beagle is 100% bootstrap. We have not raised outside capital.
Oh, really?
Um,
Nothing at all. Wow, that's interesting.
Zero. Yeah, and that was a combination of reasons, but largely these are long journeys, and you need to have a team that's singing off the same hymn sheet. And if the partners that you're talking to, either you don't get them or they don't get you, especially at early stage companies, it's just not worth the grief,
Yeah.
um, from their perspective or yours, because raising outside funds brings pressure,
Yeah.
and there's a chase for revenue, and if you're chasing revenue, you may miss a better product market fit. So that was the decision that we took to not do that. Luckily, we had the luxury that we could say, listen, no, we're just going to hold fire on this one, and we're going to take our time and really discover what the market is telling us, not what we think should fit into the market. And that gave us time, that gave us space, and that gave us the ability to respond as we saw the market was telling us. Say, listen, you're actually wrong. You need to do this, or whatever the case may be, and discover what the revenue model is, and discover what the product market fit is. And
Mm.
they're eureka moments that take time to find out, especially in an industry that has a slow cycle. These aren't bang, 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 bang. This isn't fast moving consumer goods that the market is going to tell you very quickly. Like, you have long tails on sales, you have long
Mm.
tails on closes. So it takes a while to understand these things, especially at an enterprise scale.
And
You,
did you,
this,
did, I was going to ask, I mean, from the point of view of when you're bootstrapping a business, obviously the initial clients that you sign up are critical. Did you find people
yeah.
were reluctant, or did you, bring people in on a kind of test, beta test, as kind of trial? Did you kind of introduce people that way? Because it's hard to get someone to sign up to a product for the first time when it's only
Yeah.
starting out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the first product that we started with was an auction product, and there was a familiarity in the market about online auctions and that kind of thing. So we had an auction product that I built myself, and agents had on board and started using that, and we used that kind of as a route to discussions to understand what people were at, and that the lessons that we were learning through the development of that informed where the bidding product, where Beagle eventually came from. And that really told us the light touch piece. Originally, when we started building the auction product, we were looking to add value to the agents and help them with consumer facing problems and onboarding and customer support. And the more we tried to give them, the nervier they got, because we were dealing with what they saw as their customers, and they were 100% right. We were dealing with their customers, and they didn't want us dealing with their customers. So that once you pull that out, that your customer support level starts to drop, and so
Mm.
we drop further and further and further back from the interface, and into the enterprise space by just continually listening to that message.
Yeah, I can understand. I mean, they kind of think initially the worry would be that this is like a Trojan horse, and you're there, you're kind of helping them, and suddenly, oh, these are all now our customers, and good luck with your business that your analog
Exactly.
business. It's
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. And so
yeah.
did people, I mean, the automatic thought that it comes into my head is that, you coming from that sector, Was there kind of a sense that how can, can we trust that you're not pulling these customers to your other family business and things like that?
Correct.
Did it take time
Yeah.
to establish that you're genuine and that this isn't an issue?
That was one of the reasons why I left, Gavin,
You had
because
to
I didn't
step
want.
down. Yeah, you had to
Oh,
step down.
absolutely. I had to. I had to because it couldn't. I couldn't. This isn't a backdoor purple bricks. Like it's not. It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's not an attempt to set up an online agency, and it's why Beagle doesn't have an auctioneer's license, and we've no intentions of going down that road. We don't hold client funds. We don't get into KYC. We don't get into AML. So we want to make it perfectly clear, and that we have no intentions of getting into that high touch, high customer support area that is going to erode our clients' businesses. It's not what we're at. It's tough enough being an agent out there as it is
Mm.
without thinking that somebody else is going to come in and eat your dinner. That's not what we're at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it's really interesting. So, what are the challenges that face you now going forward? I mean, what's your what's the biggest list of challenges that you're trying to kind of overcome at this stage?
Scaling. Yeah,
Scaling in
it,
the
it's
US or just general scaling?
with scaling in the US, it's managing scale. We're getting into that piece of managing scale. How do we go about it? Providing resources for onboarding for dev teams, that kind of stuff. That's where our focus is at the moment. Is understanding that piece of it, and smoothing the onboarding journey and smoothing that support piece for our clients, dev teams, and their teams coming into the ecosystem.
And do you see yourself having to resort to raising VC finance, or will you continue to bootstrap?
I'm not adverse to raising finance. We have been approached by a couple of investors since we started in the US. If they're the correct fit for what we're trying to do and they can help accelerate our journey, we're absolutely very happy to work with them. And if they can open up more doors for us to speed up what we're trying to do, if if that doesn't work, if the fit doesn't feel right, we're very content to continue to bootstrap, and get what we're trying to do correct. That's the important thing for us, because I think the having the product right and having the consumers happy is more important than having a war chest of a couple of hundred grand. So that brings in its own problems. If it accelerates what we're trying to do, then very happy to accelerate.
Yeah.
If it's a slow build, it's a slow build. We want to do this properly.
Tell us I mean, running a business that's trying to scale in America, what does that do in terms of your time management?
Throws my body clock off to an inordinate
I would
extent.
have thinking like you're doing a lot of late nights and stuff, I would imagine, are you?
Yeah, late nights and early mornings. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And do you
They
find,
just
do you consider, is there any point in this sort of story where Healy becomes a resident in the US, or is that sort of not on the cards?
it's not on the cards. I was requested to do so in a conversation we're having before, and I have absolutely no interest in moving to the US. I'll
Yeah.
hop on a plane and go up and do a tour around, but I'm far too fond of Athlone, being honest with you, Gavin. I like this country.
It's funny. It's the reason I ask is just that there's a couple of guys that I'm aware of in the prop tech space, not in your specific area, but kind of on the fringes. And recently, one of them moved to the US and is actually now living in. I think he's living in New York City, and it's interesting to see people kind of making that leap, kind of deciding that if they want to scale or whatever, they feel like it's necessary to be on the ground over there. So that's why I was curious just whether you saw that as an option.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly I don't want to.
I
I
would have
don't.
thought that the last 2 years has actually been helpful in that conversation, because the fact that we're all online now, whereas before you might have been expected to be front and center in the office or walk around.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Like these kind of Zoom calls, Teams, and all the rest of it. Like I'm doing 20 to 25 Zooms and all the rest of it on an average week.
Right.
And like 24 months ago, that was impossible. You'd hop on a plane for a 1 hour meeting in London and come back again, and half a day is gone. But now you can be doing calls. You could be doing Australia at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you could be doing Seattle at 8 o'clock at night, and there's no difficulties with it. People are very happy to do so. As you were saying earlier, their teams are probably distributed as well. So they might be only meeting on Teams anyway. So you're just another face in the room.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it responds very, very well that way. Suits the business model.
It has transformed the way people perceive, locations now and stuff like that. You can actually, you could be living in Spain or, Yugoslavia. There's no such thing as Yugoslavia anymore, but you know what I mean? It's like you could be in any of these locations and it doesn't really matter anymore. But that was not the case just 2 years ago. So it's amazing how COVID has transformed the way we even perceive that conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're going to see the emergence of pure virtual companies over the next couple of years. Companies that are born online, the founders meet online, they sign their term sheets online, they recruit online, and nobody ever meets face to face. It's a series of sheds in back gardens,
It'll be
straight through
interesting to see.
like
I mean,
no.
I don't disagree that I'm sure it'll be there, but I just, from my perspective here on the ground in a business park, I have conversations with the corporate occupiers here, and most of them all want to get back to the office. They don't like they like the option of working from home, but they don't like full time working from home. And
Yeah,
that is something that I mean, that's becoming more and more of a thing. Whereas in the past, it was kind of like, oh, geez, yeah, I'd love to work from home full time, but try it for 2 years, and it's not long before people are, God, I'd love to get back to the office. I'd love to get back to the banter, and but I do think that the office as a workplace is changing, and you're going to be talking about, instead of having rows and rows of desks, you're probably going to be having collaboration space and meeting rooms, and there'll be kind of breakout areas where you can kind of socialize with your colleagues and stuff. And the days that you do go into the office are going to be days that you're going in to mingle and kind of build, work with your team. It's not going to be a day to go in and sit at the desk and quietly work away for 8 hours.
yeah, exactly. Agreed. I think it won't be one. It's not going to be a case of one or the other. It's going to be a matter of personal preferences. You're going the emergence of people working from home, co-working spaces, the corporate office, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Depending on the household size and the nature of what's there, and if you want to get out of the house and go to a like you could be living in Athlone, for example. You could be going to a co-working hub somewhere in the middle of town, and then once or twice a week you might hop on the train and head up to the corporate office in Dublin or Galway or
Yeah.
someplace. I think that kind of flexibility and giving the team the flexibility to do their job as they see fit, and as long as the results are coming through, that's what's important at the end of the day, not
Yeah.
where it's being done. The asynchronous nature of work is becoming more and more apparent.
Yeah,
And
and it's interesting. Just speaking of online company, I mean, one of the biggest, fastest growing tech companies at the moment is TikTok. And I was interested to read during the week that they've signed a lease here on an office headquarters of 212,000 square feet here in Dublin, and
wow.
they've signed the lease like this past weekend, I think, or week. It was signed, and it'll take probably a year before that is fully fitted out, and that they have staff moving in. And no sooner have they signed it, they're already looking for their next location, because they think that they're going to be probably outgrowing that building within like the next 3 years or something like that. So it's just incredible how these tech companies, like the expansion and the speed that they grow their teams, is beyond belief. But they still need to have, like, I have actually, my wife has one of our best friends is working for TikTok, and we were chatting there recently. She was asking me, have you heard, like, when are we going to be moving into our new building? Because she can't wait to get into an office. Like, she works at home and she has a young daughter, and it's like, she just finds it very hard to get a proper day's work done at home, compared to the
Yeah.
being in an office and being kind of in the right place for that kind of work.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The thing,
we've strode off your the point of the conversation with Healy Hynes. So Healy, just in terms of like the prop tech market, the real estate market in general, and technology and its kind of interface, like what are you excited about over the next couple of years, or like where do you see the next big kind of moment in the industry? Like where is it going to? Is there a kind of a shift that you see or you're predicting?
um, I think I tell you what I'm fascinated with at the moment is the movement, the access and the impact that big data is going to have in the property sector. I think that's going to be very, very interesting over the next couple of years. A lot of the prop tech, um, the prop tech innovation that's going on, the introduction of like smart building technologies and this kind of stuff, like the impact that that's going to have over on the experience of users and of consumers of the property industry, not just on an occupier basis day to day and what we work innovated in their buildings, but how that's actually going to feed down into the design and provision of housing and obviously customer experiences from our perspective as
Mm,
Beagle, obviously, and the tools that we can provide for our agents and the consumers of their services. But the bigger impact of what that's going to mean for the industry as a whole, leading into the provision of housing stock, where developments are going to happen, and hopefully the identification of pain points in the sector before they actually become pain points. Like
mm,
we're seeing it now in Dublin and in Ireland with supply demand imbalances and where people are looking to build and where the planning permissions have been granted and tensions in planning applications and all this kind of stuff, which if there was a 24 or 36 month forewarning or longer term planning about where these things are going to be coming from, that the planners themselves and the developers themselves and the banks will get greater comfort about what the market is actually going to be demanding, and be better able to plan and predict forward, what the industry as a whole is going to require. So I think that's going to be very, very interesting over the next couple of years.
yeah.
Um,
Certainly the
that
construction process is I mean, I go out every week to the construction site that we're building some houses in Dublin here at the moment, and every week I go out and I see a little bit of progress every week, and as I'm watching it I kind of think to myself, can you just imagine the efficiency if this was all being done in a controlled environment in a factory where it's all modular and it arrives on site kind of ready to just assemble, and all you need to do is build the foundation and the base and the infrastructure, and that's it, bang, that you just come in then and erect it like a big mechano set. And
yeah,
that's I think where it has to go, because the supply demand imbalances that we keep on talking about, that the combination of delays in the planning process, if you wanted to build 1,000 houses next week, I mean, it's just to take you a year to get through the planning process just to do that. And then when you've done that, you've got to try to cobble together all these different crews to actually build out that number of homes and stuff. And there's not enough bricklayers, there's not enough block layers, there's supply demand, the supply chain issues of trying to get product to site, because we're storing
yeah,
an enormous amount on site at the moment that we normally would just be order and it's delivered the next day or a day later or whatever. It's really problematic at the moment, and you can see we need housing so badly and yet we can't deliver it. And 2008 there was 90,000 homes built, and we need to build at the moment, I think they say that we need to build 50,000 houses, and yet we cannot come even close to that number at the moment. And so yeah, technology, it would be, if we could figure out a way for technology to do that,
yeah,
it would be a big plus. Interesting. I'm conscious of
yeah.
time, Healy. You're a busy man, and so just in terms of if people wanted to learn more about uh, Beagle, like what's the best way to find you and to connect with you?
If they can go to the website beagle.io, so it's beagel.io, or they can find me on Twitter, or they can find me on LinkedIn. The Twitter handle is Healy Hynes, and the company is beagle_io.
Okay, great stuff. Healy, before we go, final bit of advice I always ask my guests, knowing now what you know and all the experience you've got, looking back on your career and things like that, if you were to given the opportunity to speak to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give?
The, I would tell my 20-year-old self not to take it so seriously.
Yeah, just
I was a
enjoy life a
very
bit.
serious young man. Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
So just
Relax, mate.
enjoy life a little bit more, and don't be so kind of hard on
Yeah,
yourself.
take it
Live,
in, take it in.
smell the roses, as they say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Healy, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for your time today. And yeah, I'll go and put in the show notes links to your LinkedIn and your Twitter and the Beagle website. So thanks so much for your time, and catch you soon.
Cheers, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Facade. If you enjoyed this or found it useful, please take a moment now to leave a review on iTunes, or indeed share it with a friend. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please connect with me via the Facebook group Behind the Facade Community. Alternatively, send me a direct message on social media. My handle, as always, is Gavin J. Gallagher. You can stay up to date with all of the projects and things I'm working on by joining my tribe, adding your name and email over at gavinjgallagher.com. That's all for now, guys. See you back here next week.